Hello friends, it's Christine Vicenti with Queen City Stamp Art, and I'm back today with a clean and simple Sunday card, this time sharing a stamp set called Eclectic Garden from the new January to June mini catalog. This is one of those stamp sets that you might miss as you're going through the catalog because it looks like so many others that you may have in your stash. I personally did not have a stamp set like this, one that had such a variety of images, and I actually was very drawn to the sentiments. I love the font on the sentiments. I also like to have a stamp set or two that have outline images with a fill-in element. So these little splurches on this stamp set are great for filling in like the leaves, so you can just like ink that up and stamp it over the leaves. And this is great for like the flowers or the flower or the berries, or for the beets. So this is just kind of a fun stamp set. It's a little funky. I really liked it. And I actually used it in a virtual creative retreat that I did on Facebook for a private group yesterday. I had a lot of fun with that. We used this set to make the make and takes. In fact, I can show you some of them. So we created a bunch of different cards during the event. And I showed the group how to use the blender pen, which we're going to be using today, to color in some of the images. So for a couple of the cards, we colored the images with the blender pen, and then for a couple, we used the little splotch stamp to color in the images. So it was really fun. It was a nice variety. I think everybody had a good time. I'm going to be doing it again in the fall, so there'll be another registration that opens. So if you're interested in attending a virtual event from anywhere in the United States, you can log in. As long as you're on Facebook, you'd be able to log into the event and enjoy it with us. I am going to be, like I said, I'll be hosting another one in the fall. So if you want to make sure you don't miss out, just go ahead over to queencitystampart.com, and when that little pop-up pops up in front of you, just sign up for my email newsletter, and you'll get a monthly update from Stampin' Up, and you'll be included in any class registrations that I have that go out. Okay, so let's get into the card. We're going to be using the little berry sprig today, and then the birthday sentiment for the card. And I'm also going to be using a panel of basic white cardstock that I embossed with the Pretty Flowers embossing folder. And we're going to be using a pool party panel that I cut using the contours dies, Scalloped Contours dies. So one of these. So just so that you know what was used. So let's get into the card making. We're going to start with a basic white thick base card that I cut to 11 by 4 1/4, and then I scored it at 5 1/2. So it's going to be a side folding landscape card. And we are going to layer on this beautiful embossed panel. So I like to be a little generous with my adhesive when that happens. I think embossed panels are gorgeous. And they're perfect for clean and simple cards because they add some interest to the card without adding a lot of distracting color. It just really adds texture, which is nice. So there's that. Now we're going to take this little panel, and I'm going to take some of my linen thread, and I want to tie a bow on the far edge. So I'm going to wrap this around the card base a couple of times. I think I've run out of linen thread. Let's try that again. So we're going to wrap this around the base twice, and then I'm going to tie a bow right on the edge of this panel. So while I'm doing this, the January host code is still viable for another 24 hours. So if you need to order any supplies, or you want to take advantage of our celebration sale where you spend $50 and you get something free out of the celebration flyer, that's still active for another month. But you can use that code and place your order, and I will send you the card kits and the little mini class for the month of January. So I'm going to add this panel to the base card using flat adhesive, tape adhesive. And I'm going to use a little bit extra because it's textured, just to help it stick a little bit better. So I'm just going to center that on the front of the card like this. I'm going to set this aside, and we're going to get into the stamping. So for this, we're going to be using a sentiment and the little berry sprig to make this card. And I'm going to start with the sentiment because I like to do sentiments first whenever I'm using a smaller panel, just to make sure that the sentiment fits properly in the right spot on the card front. So I'm just going to focus on this bottom right corner. And the photopolymer makes it really easy to see through. Then I'm going to ink up the little sprig with the berries. And I'm going to stamp that in the opposite corner. Just like that. Then I'm going to close this up so I don't get my fingers in it. And I'm going to pull in my soft seafoam ink pad and my pool party ink pad. So for this, we're going to be coloring the berries in with the blender pen. So I'm going to take my ink pad and I'm going to give it a squeeze like that and lift it open. And what happens when you squeeze it is a little bit of color gets transferred to the inside of the ink pad, so in the lid. So I'm going to use this to pick up the color and just gently color in each of the berries. And it's really good to remember that wherever you touch first is going to be the darkest. So just keep that in mind. But what I love about the blender pen for coloring small areas is that it's super easy to do and it makes it look like watercolor. So it's a real fun way to color, I think. And then you can go back in and add more if you feel like there's some spots that are too light. I kind of like the light and dark, the variety of light and dark. Then when you're ready to switch colors, so now I want to move on to the leaves, I'm just going to scribble off until I don't see any more color on my blender pen. And I'll do the same thing with the soft seafoam. I'm just going to squeeze it and open the lid. And there is a little puddle of color here. And I'm just going to bring this, I'm just going to swipe it in. And you don't have to be too particular or fussy. This is meant to look kind of artistic. And this is a very light color. You might be a little bit more careful if you were using like a pear pizzazz or a mint macaron. Just like that. I'm just going to go in back in here and add a little bit of dark near the center of a couple of the stems. Just like that. Yeah, I like that. So that's that. And then you just clean off your brush by kind of going back and forth until there's no more color. Now, I'm going to add this. I'm going to bring my card base back in and add this panel on top of the little scalloped layer panel. So I'm going to get my dimensional adhesive. And then we're going to do something kind of fun to complete the embellishment of this card. So I'm just adding a few of these dimensionals. I'm pulling off the release papers here. And now I'm going to center this over the top. And I cut this panel so that it would fit inside the pierced border of this die cut layer because I just love how that looks. I think that's really pretty. So to finish this card, we're going to do a couple things. We're going to add one of these beautiful polished dots in clear. These are kind of shiny and they look like little water droplets right here by the sentiment. And then I'm going to bring in one of my old favorites here, the Shimmery Crystal Effects. And we're going to dot on some Shimmery Crystal Effects on top of each of these little berries. And when it dries, it will give kind of a dimension and a sparkle to the fruit here on the pictured as our focal image. So I'm just, because this has such a pointy little applicator, I'm able to squeeze a little dot of product onto the berries, the individual ones. And there's not that many, so it doesn't really take that long. It goes pretty quickly. And then because this product is thick, there's like some of them have little points. Some of the dots have little points. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to smack it on the desktop a couple times. Like that. And what that does is it kind of settles the product so it flattens a little bit. But this will have a nice texture you'll be able to feel and see when when the card dries. So right now it just looks kind of bumpy, but it will have better bumps and they'll be clear and solid in a few hours. I'm just going to set it aside. You have to add this product. I really recommend that you wait till the end of your card project like I did. I put the whole thing together and then I added it. So now I can set it aside someplace safe where it can dry overnight. And it doesn't really take overnight. It's just a couple hours and it'll be nice and solid. But I like to let them sit overnight so they're nice and dry and they don't get squished. I had made one earlier too as an example. This one's almost dry, but you can kind of see the sparkle probably because there's a little bit of glitter in this product. And it's really cool. It's not just meant for Christmas cards, you know, you can use it all year round on anything that you want to bump up the texture on. So I hope you enjoyed the card for today. I appreciate you watching and I'll see you next week.